So aren't we privileged? Oh, there's a camera here. Does that camera look okay?
Everything looks good. Yes.
So folk online are hearing this.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. This will be a new experience for me. First time I've taught a retreat with people in masks. So, and also I've never done a live stream. I've done Zoom, but this is on a Zoom platform.
Yes.
But it's just a little different. Okay. It'll be fun. So first things first is, as you know, to start a retreat, we always what we call take the precepts, and I think most monks remind lay people of this. When the Buddha is asked, "Who do you leave as your teacher?" He says, "I don't leave a person. I leave the Dhamma Vinaya," and the Vinaya is specifically for the monastic community, and it's a lifestyle, but not just any lifestyle. Obviously, it has all kinds of really skillful means in terms of attitudes, in terms of protocols, in terms of etiquette, in terms of rules, in terms of legal procedures, in terms of sharing requisites. It's a brilliant, really brilliant way to live one's life. Of course, I do it. That's why I say it's brilliant. But the brilliance of the Buddha is not so apparent to lay people, because you've been to monasteries maybe, but the kind of nitty-gritty of that day by day doing of it is extraordinarily helpful. So when lay people take the precepts, it's just a kind of general reminder of the necessity of a good lifestyle. And so if you just had the Dhamma, just the Dharma, without a lifestyle, what do you do? And if you just had a lifestyle without Dharma, that's insufficient as well. And nowadays there are lots of very good teachers in, say, Advaita Vedanta and all very good. And I like to read them. They're very helpful. But the whole way of life that the Buddha created for the people who could be close to him, I think is unique, and we have the opportunity to live that way because of lay people. So we couldn't be monastics if it wasn't for your support and kindness. So on a retreat, we're trying to create kind of a monastery, quasi-monastery, and so the 8 precepts are, as you know, the guidelines for monastic life. So if you ever come and stay in Tisarana, you'll find we do this every fortnight, take the precepts. So just to remind you, I'll just go through them if you want to look at them. Partially for the people, I know most of you know this very, very well, but if you go to page 134. Yeah. So any folk, most of us here are quite familiar with this, but for people who are online, just in case you're not familiar with this format, I'll kind of go through it. And so the 8 precepts, first precept, I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. And that's pretty obvious. And where it becomes an issue is rodents, insects, termites, mosquitoes, aphids on your roses, those kinds of things. And you're kind of faced with a moral dilemma. Someone wrote to me once and saying, "What do I do about my aphids?" I said, "It's your problem." And it is, right? Each of us has our own kind of moral predicament that we're just faced with. And it's not a moral absolute. It's not a moral absolute. It's just this very, very strong reflection. It's a reflection. I remember when I was in Northumberland way back, family they had infestation of rodents, and they had kids who were playing on the floors and all that, and they took priority over children. So they had an exterminator come in and they eliminated. They tried to catch, and but they struggled with it for a long time, and that's part of it. It's kind of to make it difficult. To not just make life easy, but not difficult for any kind of arbitrary sense, but to make it morally, to really hold up a high moral value. And so, like if in corporate life people are doing things which are not right, then you're very much reminded of that. And they're a protection. Because if you have a society society starts to just kill, I mean, it's just so awful what goes on in that way. So we're very lucky, we live in a safe society in that way. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. So notice how it's phrased, taking that which is not given rather than just stealing. And I suppose that would be like cheating on taxes, going across the border and not declaring something which you should declare, or maybe larger, maybe people still use Xerox paper. I remember Xerox paper, copying paper, taking reams of copying paper because it's a company, they won't miss it, little things like that. And then if it is in a larger, some kind of corporate thievery or whatever, then we're very, very careful what to do if the corporation itself has values which you are dubious about. Again, it's complicated. It's not straightforward. You still have to put food on the table and pay your rent. So not to get obsessed with that. When I was in Northumberland, we had no money in the bank, and we spent 2 hours talking about ethical banking. The monastery, and you could see there were some elements they were just obsessed with some kind of ethical perfection, which didn't exist. That we're kind of losing the plot there. So ethics is it's a big thing, and you do your best. I would take the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity. So that is a monastic rule. Celibacy is a monastic rule. In lay life, it's sexual fidelity, kalyanamita, friendship, which is honorable and honors the partner, and so on. But in terms of monastic life, it's celibacy. So that makes things very, very simple. So if you go to a monastery, there's no romantic, people come to us who are married, but kind of sexual part of our life is very much muted, and we watch sexual energies if they come into consciousness. But in terms of the 5 precepts, to seek a romantic relationship with someone who's already in a committed relationship, either married or not married, would be wrong. To seek a romantic relationship with someone who is a monastic or under the 8 precepts, that would be wrong. To seek a sexual activity with someone who's underage, someone who's betrothed, and so on and so forth. So there are guidelines around that. But monasteries, it's basically not pursuing sexual activity. So in terms of like what we come across now with young men coming to the monasteries, this obsession with pornography, and that is horrible. And like for young guys coming into the monastery, if just as visitors or what, if they've been watching porn for 10 years, well, meditation is like really, really, really hard, because they basically created this incredible need to go out into the objective world. It's not just about sexuality, it's about spirituality, because spirituality is learning how not to go out, how to stay home. And so when our culture gives young men this kind of overly easy access to that, it's very, very destructive, very, 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 very difficult. Fortunately, I didn't grow up in that milieu, but I keep coming across it. It's quite disturbing. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. So we have it good here. We don't talk. But I don't think you lie anyway. Anyway, for the folk at home, it's more than lying, isn't it? Right speech is like right communication, and it's like not sending emails which hurt other people, or not using language which is devious or manipulative or coarse or all that. And right communication is also it's so important, isn't it? I was just speaking to friends when there's some kind of betrayal of language, it's so hard to repair that. Those kinds of injuries that people get in relationships. So, right speech is so terribly important. So those of you who are watching online, I don't know how you do it at home, but just do less. Probably that's a good recommendation. But don't be rude. Sometimes people can be, I'm on a retreat, and then they're rude to their family. Well, you don't want that either, because the basis of our life is not rudeness. It is compassion, it is kindness. So how do you, I suppose, doing this retreat online, how can you, indicate to your family that you'd like to just be quiet for a few days without being rude? Right? Surameraya, I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Yeah, like grass is legal now in Canada. The booze has always been, right? And I don't know, guess we all did it, right? Grass at college, but it's not good for samadhi. Alcohol isn't good for samadhi. It doesn't calm the mind. LSD is a disaster for samadhi. For me. So what we're just trying to be with a straight mind and just be with what is. And when people use grass or alcohol to pacify the mind, one can see maybe, but the long-term result is there's no, like grass or alcohol or all these things, they don't require any energy from the individual. You don't, like if a person has an LSD trip, they don't put anything into it. It's just given to them through the chemical, and then there's the consequences. So you don't really develop any kind of virtuous qualities through taking drugs. And then of course people who are drunk and stoned, if they're stoned, they're very passive and they just eat Danishes, I think, right? Listen to the Grateful Dead or something. And then those who are like on alcohol, they're just noxious also. It's just so very apparent. It's not just like being goody good, right? It's just like seriously developing the mind. If you're serious about developing the mind, you have to be careful what you put into it. Not just the toxicants of like these things, but like the toxic things on the news, things like that. So we're really trying to protect our mind and bodies because it's our vehicle. So precious. Vikala Bhojana, I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times. So this is a strange one. What's inappropriate? Well, what you do is in a monastery, you're trying to simplify your life and not nibble or graze, or also that someone doesn't have to cook the evening meal, which is usually one person or two. But so what you do is you establish a kind of routine for yourself. I'm speaking very much to the people on the Zoom channel, whatever we call it. That what you want to do is design a way of doing this retreat where you have very few distractions. Right? You just like somehow put your iPhone away, and don't always look for tea and coffee and biscuits and sandwiches, because that mind which is always going out into sense objects, it's not an immoral thing, is it? Right? But it's a very restless thing. When you are asked to say, practice sense restraint, practice renunciation for a few days, what's the result? Well, the result for the first few days is you want to look at your emails or the news site or all the other platforms that we have. Now that restlessness is quite a serious consequence of always being distracted. So you're faced on a retreat situation with as few objects as possible to absorb into, and that's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. But you want to know that discomfort is because we don't know how to stay home. We know how to abide in our own hearts. We've been so besotted now with these different interesting ways of staying distracted. And that's, again, it's not wrong, but the spiritual center of our being is not an object. And our going out into objects in a heedless way, in a kind of addictive way, prevents seeing that. You just can't. You can't see. You can't be home and away at the same time. So for those of us here, if you have like iPhones and so on, if you can, just like put them in the woods for a few days, or if you have to have, if you have someone who's ill or whatever, once a day, use some kind of discipline. But really, like the first few days, if you're tempted to look up your emails, don't do it, because then you'll do it the next day, right? Sort of like these first few days, be really clear. Now, this is something I'm doing now, and that takes us to the so here, like the this precept, there's 3 opportunities for having food, and the food is what's offered. And that's simple, right? And we've talked it over about how to do that. So like the kitchen isn't an option to go, or can't go and ask the cooks, can we have this? So the food is given us. And so the reflection is a gratitude rather than a preference. And that's a different state of mind, and I might prefer Thousand Island salad dressing to French dressing. These significant choices that we're faced with. But I'm grateful that there is salad dressing. I'm grateful that there is food, and gratitude is non-desire. Preference is desire, and consumerism gives us a preferences which stimulates more desire, which stimulates more production, which stimulates more pollution, and we know the cycle. Renunciation is going towards non-desire, contentment with little, gratitude, and these are a foundation, a lifestyle foundation for peace. For samadhi, for realizing the unconditioned. So that's the kind of thing around the food thing. But it isn't like immoral to eat fish and chips at 12 midnight or something. It's probably a rough night for you. It's not a moral issue. You have to remember that, right? And people get kind of hung up about these things sometimes. Notice the Buddha, in Buddhism, there isn't that much about diet. Diet is kind of modern. So like in the time of the Buddha, people were grateful to get food. Monks were grateful to get food. So it's more about like gratitude, contentment with little, it's good enough for the day, kind of thing. Nachagita, I undertake the precept to refrain from entertaining beautification and adornment. Beautification, adornment, Buddhists don't seem to have a problem with that. But the entertainment one is, like I was talking about, the iPads or whatever media we use. And we have this beautiful environment here, don't we? I mean, for the folk who are watching online, it's just so gorgeous here. I wish we could all be here. And so we have the river, we have this primeval forest, and if we use that for our sense nourishment. So it's not like the sense world is wrong. It's not bad. It's not evil. But certain sense objects calm the mind, and other sense objects stimulate greed, hatred, delusion. So, like using the river and just looking at the space in the river, and those big pine trees. All of us know this here. So it's almost like, hey, I don't have to say anything. This retreat, we just walk in the forest. It's good enough, isn't it? So for those of you who are online, have you got any natural beauty around you? Participate in that in whatever way you can. And then the 8th precept is very weird. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high luxurious sleeping place. So that's got this historical context of say in monasticism, if someone had a bed, it was pretty luxurious. It's just a bed. And then what's the problem with luxury? It makes you lazy. Luxury you get too comfortable. It's too easy. So that's what that's pointing to. So you don't have to throw your bed out. But yeah, I've often thought, how can we reword this? But that's the tradition. But it's pointing to comfort. There, we need a certain level of comfort, but too comfortable, and you just fall asleep, or the duvet is just too nice in the morning, so you stay under the duvet. We used to call that the fourth refuge. Sleep. Yeah. So those are the 8 and the preliminary, as you all know, but just to go through in case there are folks online where this is new, there's a formula that we use. Nisanka, you'll probably lead that with you. Yeah. There's a formula we use, and we'll use the one on 131, Mayang Bante. And so I won't start yet. I'll explain this first, okay? But that's the formula. Mayang Bante, Tisarana Saha Atasilani Yachama, and Dutiyampi and Tatiyampi. And so Nisanka will lead, but everyone will kind of pitch in with that. And then the preliminary to that is homage to the Buddha. And I don't know about you, but I'm certainly happy there was the Buddha. I'm so grateful. And that gratitude is what we call Bhakti. And the Bhakti tradition is, Viradhammo series is very familiar with it. He's originally from Chennai. And the Bhakti tradition is the sense of devotion. Puja is like devotion and gratitude to the deity, to the being, to the teacher. And it's about the emotions rather than the intellect. So when you see a Buddha image, or you see this batik behind me, for Westerners, I think it's more difficult. We don't connect. Like for someone like Hua or Nisanka from Buddhist traditions, I think the idea of Buddha is much more powerful because you grew up with it. For Westerners, it's many, we probably relate more to teachers, but that being whatever the case is, if you just imagine who was this person that not only realized the kind of deepest possibility of human spirituality, but then shared it for 45 years, 45, I got the numbers right, and created a community, both monastic and lay, that is strong 2,600 years later. To me, it's absolutely astounding. So when we chant Namo Tassa, homage to the Buddha, that's what we're saying. That's what we're trying to bring forth, a sense of gratitude or devotion, qualities of heart. But again, quite often those qualities of heart are easier to relate through a human being quite often. But there's a lineage, isn't there? And then Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. And we take refuge in Buddha. So here, again, I know I've said this to all of you here many times, but here I use the word Buddha as awake. And that's more the meditative or the principle of awakening or awakened or whatever, not woke. That's more a modern concept. But it's the mind which isn't just caught with life, isn't it? It's a mind which knows what's going on. It's awake to the way things are. It's not a political stance, that's for sure. So even if I feel even if I have a racist feeling towards someone, and I know, oh, that's racism, that's aversion, or that's conceit, and I know that's taking refuge in Buddha. If I believe in that racist conditioning that's come to me through my culture, and I believe in it, and I create a self around it, that's delusion. Right? So awake does not mean that you are a good Buddhist. It just means you know what's going on. And you know the story I always tell of the lady I went to get some sewing needles for our sewing machine, and the lady who was at the cashier, she had yarn and sewing machines and stuff like that, and she was Muslim, and she wore a scarf on her head, and she was really funny. She was really, really funny, and I was surprised. I said, "Why are you surprised?" "Oh, I thought people who wore scarves on their head weren't funny." But look at me. You know, I was sure people said the same darn thing. But the thing is, I knew it. You know, and it wasn't my fault. You know, it's just the way the culture is conditioned by. And it was really interesting. You know, why wouldn't she be funny? You know, why can't she be? You know, yeah, wow. And that's what we mean by a way. You know, it's not a judgment about what you're experiencing. It's just a bias. Oh, it feels that way. But I don't have to buy into it. I can know it as an object. And it's skillful or it's unskillful. Dharma is the truth of the way things are. And in that example, is the truth of the way things are is that this perception has arisen. It's that way. It has arisen, and it will cease. And when I see it as Dharma, I don't take it as self. Then I neither hate myself for it, nor do I indulge in it in some kind of racist way or something. It's Dharma. It's just the Dharma of perception. Perceptions are conditioned. They come into the mind and they go. So I'm awake to Dharma. And then Sangha, to me, is lifestyle. It's how you live this, right? So it's not about the monastic community. That's one way of defining Sangha. Are you doing all right, Jane, with that?
I was about to try to screen share for the 8 precepts, but I can't seem to find my
Okay.
document.
Do you need help with anyone?
Howard, do you want to?
Okay, you guys work on that. I'll just finish this, yeah?
Yeah, we're not quite ready to do it yet.
So Sangha is lifestyle. Yeah? And if you take the 5 precepts, I take the precept to not kill, not harm living beings, which means that I promise you that I will not hurt you. So I liberate you from the fear of me hurting you. It's compassion. I promise you that if you have an iPhone, I will not nick it. I will not go up to your room and take your iPhone because I don't want to be a monk. But more than that, I give you the freedom from fear, the fear of your goods being. I promise you that I will not interrupt your relationships with others through my own needs. That gives you freedom from fear of being cheated on. I promise you I will not deceive you with language. That gives you freedom from fear that you're being deceived. I promise you I won't get drunk and stoned because then you won't have to live with a miserable person. So I free you from a lot of pain, and that is a beautiful thing I can offer. And that's the way we look at the precepts, not as like it's an offering to the world of kindness and compassion and impeccability. So it's a beautiful thing. It's the most compassionate thing. So how are we doing there?
We're getting, Howard's been very helpful here. So we just need to do this. Oh.
So apparently we're trying to get the screen share up.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I'm sure it's important.
No, it's up.
It's up.
It's
Okay.
up.
So we can go for it?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So Nisanka, everyone who wants to join, please do. But often we bow 3 times if you'd like to do that, but if you don't like bowing, that's all right too. Was a pro she knows too. Okay, so bow 3 times. With bowing, it's like optional. You can do it or not. And then if everyone turns to page 131, and that or a group from a monk. So Nisanka will lead, his voice will lead, and join him in together. Yeah, please. Everyone together with him to start again.
Mayam Bante Tisaranena Saha Atta Siddhani Yachama Dudiyampi Mayam Bante Tisaranena Saha Atta Siddhani Yachama Tatiyampi Mayam Bante Tisaranena Saha Atta Siddhani Yachama.
So please repeat after me. I'll say this 3 times and then you follow. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Over the page. Tisarana gamanam nikitang. So the 8 precepts, I will do, what do I do? I'll do the Pali. Just to help you with the Pali, I'll do the Pali word by word, and then the English in one line. Okay? That way you learn the Pali a bit better. So just follow me. Panatipata.
Panatipata.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikhapadam.
Sikhapadam.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adinadana.
Adinadana.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikhapadam.
Sikhapadam.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Abrahmacharya.
Abrahmacharya.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikhapadam.
Sikhapadam.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity.
I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity.
Musawada.
Musawada.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikhapadam.
Sikhapadam.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Sura meraya.
Suramadaya.
Maja.
Maja.
Kamadatana.
Pamaditana.
Veramani.
Veramani.
Sikhapadam.
Sikhapadam.
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Vikala bhojana.
Vikala Bhojana,
Veramani,
Veramani,
Sikkhapadan,
Sikkhapadam,
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I take the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times.
I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times.
Nachagita,
Nachagita,
Adita,
Vadita,
Visukadasana,
Visukadasana,
Malaganda,
Malaganda,
Vilepana,
Vilepana,
Dharana,
Dharana,
Vandana,
Mandana,
Usaratana,
Vibhusavatana,
Veramani,
Veramani,
Sikkhapadam,
Sikkhapadam,
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, and adornment.
I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, and adornment.
Uchasayana,
Uchasayana,
Mahasayana,
Mahasayana,
Veramani,
Veramani,
Sikkhapadam,
Sikkhapadam,
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high luxurious sleeping place.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high luxurious sleeping place.
If you flip the page. Imani,
Imani,
Atta,
Atta,
Sikkhapadani,
Sikkhapadani,
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami,
Imani,
Imani,
Atta,
Atta,
Sikkhapadani,
Sikkhapadani,
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami,
Imani,
Imani,
Atta,
Atta,
Sikkhapadani,
Sikkhapadani,
Samadhiyami.
Samadhiyami.
I undertake these 8 precepts.
I undertake these 8
I
precepts.
undertake these 8 precepts.
I undertake these 8 precepts.
I undertake these 8 precepts.
I undertake these 8 precepts.
Imanta Sikkhapadani Silena Sukatinyanti Silena Bhoga Sampata Silena Niputinyanti Tasama Silan Visrotaye.
Sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So that's lifestyle. And then we have also the schedule, which is part of our lifestyle. And anything else I need to cover on that, Jane? No? No one's schedule. So with the schedule, what time do we start tomorrow? 5:30. At 6 here. Again, if sometimes people have been working hard and you're just exhausted, don't worry. Get a good sleep, because otherwise you'll be sleeping here. So sometimes the retreat is just like resting, isn't it? I don't know how busy it is. For us, we've been self-isolating for 2,600 years. Anyway, first priority is get a good rest always, and then you could click in here, whatever you want. But the schedule is good. It's a good schedule. Like the afternoon from 2 to 5. That's a time where I'm with you for the first part of that, and then practice on your own. And that period of time, 3 hours, is very valuable, because you get 3 hours. You're always, for 3 hours, you're dedicated now to whatever the instructions are to be mindful, and that builds up power of the mind. So really honor those larger chunks of time. So you have the 8:30 till 11, right? 8:30 till 11. That's a good chunk of time, and then 2 to 5. And it's not like you have to do like super samadhi practices or something like that. It's just that you're not feeling the mind, you're not entertaining the mind, you're just allowing the mind to relax, to be with nature, to do sitting and walking. It's very profitable. And then if you're not tired, like if you get up earlier, come into the shrine and sit beforehand, it's really peaceful. It's really nice. The mornings are very, very good. And then if you're an evening person, want to do some walking meditation, sit by the river. But if you're exhausted at any time, get a good rest. Okay, so it's a good schedule. Thank you, Jane. That's all nicely set up. Anyone else? This is Venerable Amar Siri. He'll be my companion. He's very much loved and diligent, and he has a beautiful background from India. So he's practiced in many traditions. So I learned a lot from him because he studied Sanskrit for 12 years. Yeah, so we pick words apart a lot. They're really quite fun, and many good things. And he'll be with us for 3 days, and then the other junior monk, Sirimeda, he'll come for the last 3 days. So it's nice to share the space. How about let's get a break, say five minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, and then we'll do some sitting. So let's get back here at 8:30. Yeah, get some fresh air, get a bio break. We'll be back at 8:30 and do some meditation. Okay, please.